Hey, everybody. It's good to imagine that I'm seeing you right now. I wanted to basically make a series of videos to help orient you in our process that we're going to go through in the next 6-7 weeks as we continue to do this work. This is Writing the Good Life. So there's a series of videos here. This first one, I'm just going to go over basically the philosophy behind these workshops a tiny bit more, and then show how that kind of connects to the weekly rhythm and schedule. And then we'll go over the books that we're going to look at and why and how you might want to use those, since I didn't really talk about that in our first session very much. And then go over some of the prompts that I gave you this week to see how you might respond and react to those. So this is based on really two strains of philosophy. One is pragmatism and the other is existentialism. Pragmatism is the idea that truth is whatever works. So there is a sense that you're trying to do things like a scientist would make experiments, and that based on those experiments that you're running, you're learning more about the world that you live in, you're learning more about yourself. One of the key ideas from my framework for writing the good life, and the whole idea of this first week, especially the first 2 weeks really, is that we're getting clearer on knowing ourselves, and we're actually formalizing this process of really investigating who we are, where we are right now, how that's changing, how that might be changing, and kind of exploring that rich terrain of starting where we are and how we can use that to move forward most effectively. In this sense, pragmatism is going to go right along with the Designing Your Life book. That is basically this idea that we figure things out by doing them. We have a bias to action towards trying things, seeing if they work, and then moving on. So we're kind of hoping for failure in a way that we're kind of exploring. A failure is not a failure of the outcome. How do I want to say this? Failures are good if they can help teach us and move us forward. So it's kind of shifting the emphasis on success and moving towards kind of emphasis on the process and learning in the process. So I wanted to say about project-based learning. There's a lot of great research on how effective this is, especially when students choose their own projects that they care about. We're all participants in this, where we're all making projects, and the projects you all outlined look awesome and sound awesome. And ideally, the projects that we're making are here helping us move towards the good life. So that's kind of the projects as we refine them are going to help us do that. Okay, so, and they're kind of experimentation, if you will. We're kind of deepening our experience and experimentation. I think experiment and experience are pretty close words. The second key part of this that's interesting is existentialism, which is this branch of philosophy that basically is about our freedom as human beings to choose who we are and to choose what kind of beings we are, rather than this idea of determinism where it's who we are is determined by our past or by our history or by our surroundings or by the causal chain of events that lead us to where we are. Existentialists believe that we have some amount of agency and freedom to embrace or to choose really who we are. So the two pieces of this go together in that we're ideally making projects that are going to tell us more about who we are. When we have a greater sense of freedom and a greater sense of play and engagement with that, we're, I'm going to say, on our way to the good life. We're going to basically do a weekly rhythm that repeats this, where in the next videos we'll go over the kind of prompts or invitations to write that get us closer in identifying the shapes that our projects might take and identifying the daily goals we could complete to get closer to the weekly goal, which is going to get us closer to our 7-week goal. It's just kind of nested goals going on, and each week, each meeting that we have, basically the first part of the meeting is going to be reflecting on the previous week, comparing notes, sharing, reflecting on how things worked. And then the second half of the meeting is looking forward to the next week, brainstorming, planning, reflecting, so that we can get clearer on where we're going over the 7 weeks and ideally open up to what that might look like in our pursuit, embodiment of the good life. So I explained this a little bit before in my conception of the good life, which is just one, but it's kind of our operating system that we're going to work with. And that is basically a sense of purpose, which is the first 2 weeks. Projects, which you're going to be working on throughout, but we're really going to dive into in the center of the course, where we really kind of buckle down on what those projects are. And then people, on the assumption that we are collaborative communal beings. And I hope that this group, this workshop, will give us a kind of platform of the people to help us find our purpose in order to do projects that mean more to us, and that this cycle kind of feeds in on itself. So the next video, I'm going to go over the books and how you might explore if you haven't already gotten them, or if you're trying to decide whether or not you should get them. And let me know if you have any questions. See you soon.